This is made from metal. You see that this handle is made of wood, and we have some glass here because you can see through the pan. So materials are things that physical objects are made from. 2. State 4 examples of objects made from different materials. State 4 examples of objects made from different materials. So the first one, we have cars. Cars are made from different materials. The body is made of metal, the tires are made of rubber, the seats are made of leather, some foam, or some fabric. So cars are made from different materials. The second one is pressing iron. The iron you use to press your clothes when you are ready to go to school. The handle is made of wood or plastic, and the base is made of metal. If you take a wheelbarrow, the tire is made of rubber, and the body itself is made of metal. If you take a pencil, the body of the pencil is made of wood. The eraser is made of rubber. The object inside that you use to write, the black thing inside, is called graphite. So pencils are also made of different materials. And Kate, I believe there are so many things that if you look around, they are made of different materials. And I believe you had the answers to these questions right. Well done. Now let's begin the lesson on solid liquid mixture. Kids, at the end of the lesson, I know you will pay attention to this lesson. So I believe at the end of the lesson, you will be able to describe a solid liquid mixture. A solid liquid mixture. To mention 2 examples of solid liquid mixtures. Mention 2 examples of solid liquid mixtures. And then 3, state 2 ways of separating solid liquid mixtures. State 2 ways of separating solid liquid mixtures. So 1, you will describe a solid liquid mixture. You can mention 2 examples of solid liquid mixtures, and you will also be able to state 2 ways of separating solid liquid mixtures. Now let's begin the lesson. We are talking about solid liquid mixtures. What is a solid? What is a solid? Before we even get to the mixture, what is a solid? A solid is a substance that does not flow or move freely. A solid is a substance that does not flow or move freely. Solids are fixed in shape, and examples are this wood. So solids are normally hard, and they are fixed in shape. Not all solids are hard, but most of them are hard, and they are fixed in shape, like this wood. So if you look at this wood, you see that the shape is triangle. The shape is rectangle. The shape of this wood is rectangle. And how many are they? They are 4. So they are fixed in shape, and the shape is a rectangle. If you look at this glass too, the shape is rectangle, and then you can see that they are also hard. They are fixed in shape. They are fixed in shape. As they are there like this, you can reduce the shape, but you can't increase it. They are fixed. And then this stone also is an example of solid. So these are examples of solids. They are substances that does not flow or do not flow, and they are fixed in shape. Solids do not flow. When we get to liquid, you understand what flows. So these are examples. We have this gari as also an example of solid. We have this sand as an example of solid, and we have this salt as an example of solid. solid, you can hold them. They are fixed in shape, so you can hold it in your hands or palm. So a solid is a substance that does not flow or move freely. They are fixed in shape, and these are examples: gari, sand, and then salt. Now let's look at liquid. What is a liquid? We are going to talk about solid liquid mixtures, and right now we know that solids are fixed in shape and they do not flow. What is a liquid? A liquid is a substance that can flow freely. Okay, they can flow freely. A liquid takes the shape of its container. One, they can flow freely and they take the shape of its container. So look at this water. This is water flowing from a bottle. So if this water were to be hard, assuming it was block, ice, can it flow freely? No, it can't flow. So a liquid can flow freely. It is flowing from the bottle onto this glass, and this water flowing freely takes the shape of the glass. So if I put this water into a freezer, you will see that when it becomes solid in the form of ice, it will take the shape of the glass. So liquids flow freely and they take the shape of its container. If you look at this palm oil, it also flows freely from the bottle and takes the shape of the bowl. If you take this oil too, this coconut oil, it flows freely from the bottle. Let's look at another example. You see this honey. This honey too flows freely. It flows freely and it has taken the shape of the bottle there, or the object you see. And then we also have this kerosene flowing freely into the funnel. And then we also have soup. Soup can also flow freely. Other than that, when you take a spoon of soup into your mouth, if it doesn't flow, how can it pass through your esophagus and get to your stomach? Because it flows freely, you can take a soup and then sip some or drink some. So liquids flow freely and they take the shape of the container. So Kate, right now that you know what solid is and what liquid is, what is a solid liquid mixture? This mixture is formed when you mix a solid substance with a liquid substance. So you know solid, you know liquid. So when I take one solid and I put it in one liquid, then that becomes a mixture, and we call that mixture solid liquid mixture. So when you mix a solid and a liquid, we get solid liquid mixture. Let's look at some example. This is a mixture of sand and water. So Kate, which substance here is solid and which one is liquid? You can see water and sand in this container. Which one is solid and which one is liquid? Good. The sand is solid and the water is liquid. Good. Let's look at another example. Can you identify this? Yes, maize and water. So Kate, which one is solid and which one is liquid? Great. The maize is solid and the water is liquid. Yes. Gari and water, we normally call it gari soakings. We all enjoy some at one time or the other. So Kate, gari and water, which one is solid and which one is liquid? Good, the gari is solid and the water is liquid. Good, this mixture is also formed when you mix a solid substance, as we said, with a liquid. And look at this, we looked at gari, we looked at sand. This one, sugar, we have sugar and then salt. Sugar is solid, whether granulated, that is the grounded one, or the cube ones, they are all solid. And then we have salt, whether the smooth one or the rough one, they are all solid. So when I put sugar, as you see here, when you put sugar in water, then we get a solid liquid mixture because the sugar is solid and the water is liquid. The same applies to the salt. If I put the salt into this water, you see that it becomes a mixture of solid liquid mixture. That is a mixture of salt and water. Okay, it's when a solid substance like sugar or salt dissolves in water, the mixture formed is called a solution. When I dissolve sugar or salt in water, the mixture that is formed is called a solution. Because why solution? Because I cannot see the particles of the sugar anymore, so they become one, and we call that one a solution. Okay, so let's look at some examples of solid liquid mixtures at home. We normally make these mixtures almost every day. This is my porridge or cocoa. I'm putting sugar inside, so the porridge is liquid and the sugar is solid. So we make this type of mixture almost every day. If you don't take cocoa or porridge in the morning, you can take tea, whether Milo, whether a tea bag or any other beverage. If I put sugar, this is liquid and this is solid. The sugar is solid. So we do this almost every day at home. Let's look at another one. Mixture of corn dough and water. Mixture of corn dough and water. So when our mommies are preparing banku, they mix the corn dough with water. Or when they are making porridge, they mix the corn dough with water. So we do solid liquid mixtures at home almost all the time. Let's look at another one. Salt in a soup. When your mom finish cooking, they put, or in the process of cooking, they put salt in the soup. The soup is liquid and the salt is solid. So we do this almost all the time. Let's look at another one. Tea bag in water. If you like tea, me, I like tea. I take tea every morning. So I do solid liquid mixture every day. So we are all scientists at home. We are making mixtures, isn't it? So the tea bag is solid and then the water is liquid, and you get a mixture. When the hot water extracts the tea from the bag containing the tea leaves, we get a mixture. Good. Now let's look at how to separate solid liquid mixture. How to separate solid liquid mixture. Mistakenly, I pour sand in water. Sand is solid, water is liquid. How can I separate the two so that I can have my solid and I can have my liquid as well? Some common methods used to separate solid and liquid from a mixture are filtration and evaporation. Some common methods used to separate solid and liquid from a mixture are filtration and evaporation. Okay, let's say it together. Filtration and evaporation. Filtration and evaporation. These are some common methods we use to separate a solid from a liquid. So let's look at this. We have sand here, and then we have water. I mix the sand with the water. So I have this. I stir, I put it down for some time, and I will have this. So Kate, can you see the water as well as the sand? This is the mixture formed, this one. Can you see the water as well as the sand? Or you can see only the water, or you can see only the sand. Good, you can see the water is up here and the sand is down here. So Kate, if you do a solid liquid mixture and you can see the liquid as I see the water here, and I can see the solid as I see the sand here, then the method to separate them is filtration. Filtration, because I can see all the two substances. I can see the water here, I can see the sand here. So the best method to use to separate this is filtration. Let's look at this one. Sugar in water. So if I put sugar and then stir, can I see the sugar? No. Consider I cannot see it. If you stir it, the sugar will melt or dissolve into the water. The sugar will dissolve in the water. The sugar will dissolve in the water. So if the sugar dissolves in the water, I cannot see the sugar anymore. In this situation, I will use evaporation to separate them. I will use evaporation to separate them. So if I can see the solid and I can see the liquid in the mixture, the best method to use is filtration. If I take a mixture and I can only see the liquid, I cannot see the solid, then the best method to use is evaporation. Good. So these are the two methods we are going to look at in this lesson. Let's begin by separation of mixture by filtration. Filtration is a process by which solid substance or solid particles in a mixture are removed from a liquid using filters. So as I said, if I have a mixture, I can see the solid, the brown one, and I can see the liquid, which is the blue part. Then I can use filtration. This is maize and water. I can see the maize, I can see the water. Then I can use filtration. But how can I use the filtration to separate this? We can do this by the use of filters. By the use of filters. And what are filters? The filter allows only the liquid to pass through it, leaving the solid particles in the filter. So when I use a filter, because I can see the solid, the filter will only allow the liquid to pass through it, leaving the solid particles in the filter. And examples of filters are, Kate, we have a colander. You see that we have some holes in the colander, so the liquid will pass through the colander, leaving the solid inside. We have a strainer. Strainer too has some holes in it, so the water will pass through the holes and the solid will remain. We have filter paper. The filter paper too, the water will pass through the paper and then the solid will be left in the filter paper. We have cotton cloth. The water will pass through the cotton cloth and then the solid will remain in the cloth. So we use filter to do filtration, and these are examples of filters. Good. Kate, the tea bags serve as a filter paper, preventing the tea leaves from mixing with the water. So if you are preparing tea, the tea bag contains tea leaves. So assuming this was not in a bag, in a filter paper, then it means that when we finish, when we get our hot water, we will pour the contents of this inside. You take a spoon and then put the leaves inside, and after that we have to filter before we can take the tea. But it comes in a filter paper, so when you put it in hot water, it will extract the tea from the leaves, and then it will mix with the water, and then you have your tea. So even the tea bag, the paper that the tea leaves are in, serves as a filter paper. Good. Children, filtration is used when the solid particles are large enough to be seen in the mixture. So always remember that anytime you want to use filtration to separate a solid from a liquid, the solid particles must be large enough for you to see. As we compare the sand and the water, you could see the sand at the bottom of the container and the water at the top. Do you get it? The same applies to the maize and water here. You can see the water and the maize, so the solid particles are large enough to be seen, and that in that situation you use filtration. Good. Now let's do an experiment using a colander. So this is a colander and this is a strainer. This is a colander and this is a strainer. A colander or strainer is used when the solid particles in a mixture cannot pass through its holes. So I can only use a colander when I know that the solid particles cannot pass through the holes of the colander or the strainer. If it can pass through it, then I can use it. Then it is better to use the filter paper or the cotton cloth, because the holes are tiny, you can't even see them. But if the particles are large enough that I am sure that it can never pass through this colander, the holes of the colander, then this is the best filter to use to separate that solid liquid mixture. Now, filtration is used in the preparation of palm soup. Our mummies always do this. So after boiling the palm nut, this is a colander. You get it? So they filter, the water passed through the holes of the colander, and we have the palm nuts back without the water, because you can't pound the water with the palm nuts. So that is, our mothers are scientists at home. They are always using colander to do filtration. You get, they are doing practical science. So you see, almost every weekend I know most Ghanaian homes enjoy fufu with either palm nut soup or lye soup or groundnut soup. But when you are preparing palm nut soup, you use filtration to filter water from or to filter the palm nut from the water. Good. This is not the end. Still, in the preparation of palm soup, filtration still goes on. Let's look at it. After we get the palm nut, we pound it. Our mothers pound it. So this is the pounding. This is the pounding. So when you finish pounding, what next? You collect the palm fruit, the pounded one, and then put it in a bowl or a pan. And then the next is that we mix it with water. So this is solid. The pounded palm fruit is solid, and then we are adding water, which is liquid. So it's a solid liquid mixture. So our mothers normally use their hands to do this mixture. So this is a mixture of palm fruits, pounded palm fruits, and water. So this is a mixture of water and pounded palm fruit. So you see, this is a mixture. So because the particles right now, to continue preparing the palm soup, we have to get the liquid from the fiber and the palm nut. So because the solids are large enough to be seen, they normally use their hand to pick the fiber and the palm nut. Since the fingers cannot filter it properly, then they go back and use the colander or strainer again. Yes, so this is filtration. We only use this when you are sure that the solid particles cannot pass through the holes. So we use filtration in preparation of palm soup. We use filtration. Yes, so the liquid will drain into the container, and then the solid will remain in the strainer. So we use filtration in the preparation of palm. So after the filtration, what you have here is the residue, and the residue are the palm fiber, and then the palm nuts, and this is the filtrate. Children, this is the filtrate. This is what our mummies will use to prepare the palm soup. So they will pour this into a pan, and then they will add the necessary ingredients, and then when it's cooked, you add your fufu to it, and it's superb. Yes, so this is how they do it. You see it. I know you have seen this almost all the time at home. Our mothers are doing filtration at home almost all the time. So we use filtration to separate a mixture of palm fruit juice from palm fiber and nuts. Good. Now we can also use it to separate a mixture of pasta and water. Normally we have different kinds of pasta. You may have indomie, you may have Oba spaghetti. We have different types of pasta. After cooking, you use a strainer to separate the water from the pasta. Yes, so we have separated. So this is the solid and this is the liquid. So we have separated the two. This is the solid. This is the solid, and this is the, we have separated the two. Good, using a strainer. Our mothers also use the strainer when preparing porridge using kondo. This is kondo. This is the kondo, especially when they are preparing porridge for babies. They use it to separate the maize husk from a mixture of kondo and water. So this is kondo and water. So that will make the porridge very smooth for the baby. So we use a strainer too when preparing kondo porridge. Good. Let's look at filter paper. We have looked at strainer. A filter paper is used when the particles are very small or smooth in a mixture. An example is a mixture of sand and water. So we use filter paper when the solid is very smooth, like sand. They are very smooth. So if I use a colander or a strainer, the sand will pass through the hose. So I'll do, somebody will say, a course 90 job. I cannot use a colander to separate a mixture of sand and water because the sand particles are smooth or very small. So in that case, we use a filter paper. And when you want to do that, you use a container or a beaker, and then you use a funnel. You use a filter paper. So let's look at how it is done. Separating a mixture of sand and water. So this is the filter paper. Okay, this is what we call the filter paper, and this is what we are going to use to separate a mixture of sand and water. So we fold the filter paper and put it in the funnel, and then you keep the container or the beaker under the funnel, and then you pour the mixture inside. So the water will drain through the filter paper bit by bit, leaving the sand. You see how clean the water is, and then the sand will be left in the filter paper. The sand will be left in the filter paper. So this is how we use the filter paper. So you look at the sand. Yes, this is what it's showing you. The particles of the sand are left in the filter paper. You see that the filter paper is dirty because it's the filter paper didn't allow the sand to pass through it. So this is how we use the filter paper. Let's use the filter paper again to separate a mixture of corn dough and water. So we use these items: the conical flask, the beaker, the funnel, and filter paper. We have seen how to use the filter paper to separate sand and water. This is corn dough and then water. So this is a mixture of corn dough and water, and this is what we call corn dough. From maize, we get it from maize. We use it to prepare banku, porridge, kenke. So we are going to separate a mixture of corn dough and water. So this is a mixture of corn dough and water. You put the filter paper in a funnel, and then you put the beaker under the funnel. So when you pour it, the water will drain slowly through the filter paper to the conical flask down there. And then at the end, the corn dough will be left in the filter paper, and the water will drain into the conical flask. So this is how we use the filter paper. Good. Now let's look at the cotton cloth. So the cotton cloth is also an example of a filter that can be used. Filter. So let's look at it. A cotton cloth is used when the solid particles are very small or smooth, just like the filter paper. So we use the cotton cloth just like the filter paper. You may not have the filter paper, but you need to separate a mixture like sand and water. So if you don't have, what will you do? You can use a cotton cloth. So let's look at separating a mixture of sand and water using the cotton cloth. So this is the sand and water. This is the sand and water, and we are going to separate it. So this is the cotton cloth. Yes, you cover the container with the beaker with a cotton cloth, and you can use a rubber band to tie it, and then you pour the solution, the mixture. You pour the mixture on the cotton. So you see that the water will be passing through the holes of the cotton cloth, and then it will stop the sand from passing through. So you see the sand on top of the cotton cloth, whilst the water will be passing through. Yes. So this is how you use the cotton cloth also. Good. Now let's look at the second one. That's evaporation. At the beginning, we said that if the solid particles are large enough to be seen, you use filtration. If the solid particles cannot be seen in the liquid, then you use evaporation. So we give example of salts and then sugar. So evaporation is used to separate a solid substance that dissolves in liquid substance in a mixture by use of heat. So you can use heat to separate them. So anytime you hear dissolves in a liquid, then it means that the solid particles cannot be found in the liquid. It is still in the liquid, but you can't see them. That is what we call dissolve. An example of things that dissolve or solids that dissolves: we have sugar, we have salt, we have cocoa powder. Yes, when you go and buy your cocoa powder, Milo or cowbell, they are all solids. When you mix them with hot water, it will be very difficult to separate the powder from the water. Yes. So that is where we use evaporation. So separating a mixture. Right now you are going to separate a mixture of salt and water. So we need a salt solution. This is our salt solution. That's evaporating dish. We need fire, because we said that you can do evaporation by use of heat. So the Bunsen burner will give us the heat, and then this is the stand that we will use. So okay, that is how it is. This is the Bunsen burner, and then this is our stand. This is the evaporating dish, and this, the water you see inside, is the salt solution, as you see. So we will light the Bunsen burner, and then it will heat the solution. All the water will evaporate, and if it evaporates, we will leave the salt behind. So this is how. So the salt were not lost, it was still in the water. So the heat made the water evaporate, and then we get the salt at the bottom of the evaporating dish. So this is how we do it. You heat the solution. When it boils and boils and boils, all the water will evaporate and leaving the salt behind. So we have separated the salt from the water. We have our salt back. Good. And you know that when the water evaporates, you can also collect the water vapor, and then it will, when it cools down, it will become water again. The vapor will change to water again when it cools down, so you can get your water back also. Good. Kate, we are almost at the end of the lesson, and I believe you have enjoyed it, on how solid liquid mixtures are formed and how they are separated. So we looked at solid liquid mixtures. Example, we talked about gari soakings, how we can use solid liquid mixture in the preparation of palm soup, and we watched the video as well. We talked about separating them as well. So the solids and liquid, you know what they are, and there's an example. We have the sand here, we have water here, this liquid and this solid, and then you can mix them together and you call it a mixture, and you can separate them either by filtration, when you can see the solid particles in the mixture, and by evaporation, when you cannot see the solid particles in the mixture. Good. Now Kate, let's test ourselves small on this lesson. 1. The items shown below are examples of, so we have beans, we have groundnut, we have gravels, small stones. So Kate, what the pictures you see here, or the images you see here, are they liquid, are they gases, are they solids? Good, they are solid. Beans are solid, groundnut is also a solid, and then gravels are solid. Good. Sand and water can be separated by, sand and water can be separated by. So from the experiments that we went through, filter paper, colander and strainer, sand and water. Good. Filter paper, because when you use a colander, the sand particles will pass through it. Strainer, the sand particles will pass through it. So the best one to use the filter paper. 3. Grains of maize or corn and water can best be separated using, we have filter paper, colander, evaporation. Good. Colander, because the maize particles cannot pass through the holes of the colander, so that's the best one to use. 4. Sugar and water mixture can be separated by, we have strainer, we have evaporation, we have filter paper. Good. Evaporation, yes, because the sugar dissolved in the water, so we can only use heat to get the sugar back. And then 5. If solid particles can dissolve in a mixture, the mixture can be separated by, if solid particles dissolve, that is, you cannot see them, like the example of the sugar and salt. what method can you use to separate them? You have filter paper, you have evaporation, you have strainer. Good. Evaporation. Good. Kate, you have all done well. Yes, you have done well. I believed you understood the lesson very well. Good. Now, as usual, let me leave you with an assignment to try your hands on. State how the following solid liquid mixtures can be separated. State how the following solid liquid mixtures can be separated. So A, water and salt. How can I separate them? Water and grains of maize, that is corn. How can I separate them? Water and sand. How can I separate them? Water and corn dough. How can I separate them? Kate, we talked about 2 common methods of separation. That is filtration and evaporation. So look at the mixtures and then provide the best separation method. I will give you some few minutes to write this down. Hello Kate, you are welcome back, and I believe we are all able to put the assignment down. I believe you enjoyed the lesson on solid liquid mixtures, and today you have seen that you have been doing some of these mixtures at home as well as separating them. Until we meet again next time for another science lesson, this is your teacher Ernest Ato Benter. Bye bye.